Hey, Shepherd, welcome back to Valley Chat. Pastor John Carolus here with Pastor Scott Seidler. And summer is here, and we are excited to have a conversation with you about hopefully what it means to take a season, to step back, to relax, maybe a little bit, to reset, and also to gear up for what the fall might hold. Scott, how are things going for you today?
Man, going great. We're in the middle of Vacation Bible School in our ministry this particular first week of June. So I love that because it is something that refreshes and recharges me. And just hanging out with the kids, the adult helpers, getting to be silly, Scott. I have, as you know, John, a very silly streak in me. I am as goofy as they come. My granddaughter, who's 3 months old, by the way, along with your son, Noah, is going to learn very quickly that I am silly grandpa. And so it is just something that lowers my cortisol
Mm.
and gives me a stress-free week of pure ministry joy with kids who are looking nothing more forward than, "I just wanna have a great morning at Shepherd." So, what about
And
you, bro?
yeah, Shepherd VBS has I feel like such a strong reputation as a fun place to be. It's a great chance for kids who have aged out of our preschool to come back and hang out with each other, as well as the students who have just finished preschool on the preschool campus to come and hang out for another week of mornings. Now, it's not quite as cortisol lowering for me because I am administrating the preschool side of VBS, but I'm looking forward to next week. And also, it's such a joy to have this privilege of spending time with volunteers and with kids and sharing the love of Jesus with them and playing games with them. So Noah's been volunteering this week, so I think he's the youngest volunteer
Love
on
it.
record, and just is hanging out, helping me fill out paperwork and walk around and trying to keep him entertained, and
Love it.
sleeping when possible. So it's been great.
Love that. That is just great. Well, good for you, man. Well, hey, we've got some summer ahead of us yet. It is just the first week of June. What is your plan, John, for rest and renewal this summer? How are you gonna let the cortisol levels drop and let some of the good endorphins rise?
I love a chance to learn new things that I am just interested in, as opposed to I do love learning things that I have to know or things, skills to acquire to get work done or to understand, different necessities. But when it comes to just fun learning, that's something that's relaxing for me. So whether it be a new book or just getting into topics of theology or Bible or history that are interesting to me, that's something that is kind of a nice disconnection for me and engagement, as well as just a less full schedule, less, plans, less commitments, that kind of thing, to sort of gear up for then the busyness of a new school year come August. That's one of the quick ways that I get to it. Is there anything that comes straight to mind for you in terms of how you slow down or how you help recharge your batteries?
This summer is a little different. It is going to be a much more hectic summer for me. So, when I hear there certainly have been seasons in the summers where, I've gotten to read books or maybe study a book of the Bible, kind of do what I'll call more of a sabbatical kind of summer. This summer is just with all the stuff going on at church, staff transitions that are in play right now, getting ready for the program next year. I feel like this is one of my busier summers that I've ever had in ministry. So, I'm kind of watching that. I think for me, my big summer of joy moment is going to be I get to go golfing in Scotland with some really
Mm.
good friends. It's kind of a bucket list trip that I've been privileged to take this year. So I am. That's kind of what I'll say is it's the little zenith of my summer. So my joy is building toward that, and then it'll be the afterglow, but it's not going to be like a full summer of what I'll call rest and more of a slower pace. I'm going to be going at a fairly good clip here through June, and then certainly getting back in later July as we get into the new school year. So
There's
it's just a rhythm thing, and I think that's part of it is just being able to receive whatever the conditions are and not
mm.
fight against them, but where to kind of take your Sabbath rest when you can get it, and maybe do some planning and management around that. So
Yeah, do you think we ever put pressure on ourselves to kind of establish routines and rhythms of rest, and then we build up that expectation to the point where even when you've found the time for it,
Right.
you almost undercut the positive things that would have happened if you were actually able to sort of take a breath and slow down, and instead you've got this great sort of pressure built up, and then you get there and it's like, am I doing it right? Am I actually
Oh,
recharging?
yeah.
And you end up more stressed than when you started.
Well, and it depends on what level of resource you're investing in that. You know, when we went to Disney World for the first time with Abby when she was like, gosh, well, I don't know. It seems smart to take like a 1-year-old to Disney World because they're certainly going to remember it. I mean, the level of intensity and stress was so great because, we were very young. We didn't have a lot of money. Disney World's an expensive place. And so when you invest a lot of resources and therefore you're sacrificing, you want the outcome to be great. And so, I guess that would be a qualifying question, which is the level of resource and the way in which the level of that resource is being invested, is it more than likely or less than likely to match the outcome that you're hoping for? And
Yeah, yeah,
I think there's a
knowing your
point in
measures
time
of
where sometimes you overinvest, and you really aren't wise enough to understand, oh, there's no possible way with, triplets who are under the age of 2 that Disney World for $10,000 for a week is gonna turn out well. You know? You're gonna come back, as they say, and you're gonna need a vacation from your vacation.
Right,
But
right,
I think
exactly,
over
yeah,
time, you learn, kind of how you work, your rhythms and everything else, and that's a real valuable piece of insight.
you need to understand your measures of success when it comes to rest and relaxation,
Speaking my
there's so many
language.
resources out there, supports for knowing how to rest well, knowing how to recharge. I know, kind of an idea that we pass around Shepherd a lot is, we want you to be at your best so that you're giving your best, and not in a manipulative sense, but in a true caring sense. Like if you're not in a place where you feel good about pushing hard and working hard, then we wouldn't feel good about asking for that from somebody, whether it be staff member, volunteer, whatever it might be. We
Right.
how do we encourage each other to be the best we can be? And that means finding those quiet moments and recharging. And I'm glad that you brought up, the busyness of this summer. It's busy at Shepherd with the building project. It's busy with construction happening over at Mountain View on the patio project. It's busy because of programming. It's busy because we're moving our offices around to make room for the construction project. And then you've got family stuff happening in every single home of anybody attached to the Shepherd world. And so, those opportunities for travel are a chance to literally disconnect and geographically get into a different headspace. But the reality is the schedule is full and we're frazzled and we're busy. How do you encourage somebody who maybe doesn't have some of that margin to take a trip overseas or to just take a week off? How do you build into a daily rhythm or a weekly habit of taking time to breathe, taking time to take stock of your own, personal energy levels and really kind of devotionally getting back to a place of refueling.
I love that question, and I know we've talked about this resource that we and our own staff have studied, both in preschool and church-side staff, and that is, a resource, The Power of Full Engagement,
Mhm.
by Jim Loehr, Loehr, I believe it is. And, this idea that it's when we think about rest and rejuvenating, sometimes we think in such big terms like I need a 2-week vacation, or I'm gonna study this entire book of the Bible, and I'm starting this week, and we're gonna do it over the course of a month. I am very much a believer in what I'll call micro Sabbaths for every area of your personality, or your being. So there's the need for physical rest. Like, are you eating well, hydrating well, sleeping well? There is spiritual rest. Are you worshiping, meditating, practicing those spiritual disciplines? Emotional rest. Man, I am really aware of so many professionals who, when they go to work, it is like 8, 9, 10 hours of emotional, mixed martial arts. And when I hear stories about what happens in a work environment, I'm like, wow, aside from the product or service that your business is providing, it just sounds exhausting getting that done. And then, of course, there's intellectual, energy that you spend. And so my point is, though, is for me, I am a really small day-to-day guy. My favorite verse is, his mercies are new every morning. So I really try, even though John, that you got like all the way through February of 2027, a whole host of calendar invites and stuff. I got on a real ADHD hyper focus kind of thing, and you're writing me from Guatemala, Scott. What is wrong with you? Are you okay? Do I need to call somebody to come and collect you? So I'm all about advanced planning, but I'm really into I just live my life one day at a time, reasonably speaking. And that is to
Yep.
say, what do I need today? Am I emotionally spent? I need to get away from people perhaps, or I need to find people who emotionally fill me up, like you do, John. Am I intellectually spent? Have I spent so much time solving problems that I got nothing left and I need some intellectual energy by literally sitting and watching something on Netflix and just be a couch potato? Those are the kinds of micro fixes, micro Sabbaths that I try to incorporate in my day. I know that's a long answer. Your thoughts, reactions, or add ons, John?
No, I think that's a great resource and a great model. Another principle from that book is sort of paying attention to your own daily, like tide, if you will, the tide of your energy. When are you feeling full of energy and how productive are you? When are you feeling more
Yeah.
sapped? And rarely does it align with what you've done, opposed to sort of how you're feeling. And then how do you capture those moments where you have a great sort of feeling of productivity and putting in a couple of great hours of getting things done? So then you don't have a couple of really bad hours of getting nothing done and feeling, even more tired because you were trying to do something that you just weren't in a place to be doing well. And so, I think a lot of people in our community have the freedom to sort of set their schedule in that way. And so it can be super helpful for us to think about what that daily rhythm is for each one of us individually. And it's different for everybody. So, if you're just wondering like, man, it seems like I could be capturing that momentum better, pay attention to yourself for a couple of days and see where those opportunities are to really lean into productivity for you. Sometimes evidence of the emails I receive, it's 4 in the morning. Sometimes it's,
I try not to. I
Pastor
really
Allen's a
do.
night owl. Sometimes I'll get email, a bunch of flurry of emails at 11 p.m. And I'm like, do these guys I work with ever sleep? How do they function during the day? And,
Well, and you gotta know too, how you roll. Like John, I mean, like for instance, for those of you who are listening to this podcast, John is what I would call a method actor. Like I wish when I grow up I could be like John Carolus so often because he is just so regular. You are so regular in your method and professional behavior. It's like you start, you work, you get done. There is not a tinge of ADHD in John Carolus. That is a true statement. For me,
it's,
I can
go
get
ahead.
stuff done in like, I can get a massive amount of, like, I can figure out an entire calendar in a matter of 6, 7 hours for months in advance. And like, but now I've been thinking about it and seeing things and working through things. I mean, what's happening in the back of my brain affords me the unique opportunity to hyper achieve in a very short period of time. And so my point is, you really got to know who you are. And everybody takes a different vacation. John, you and Kaylee figured this out. You met her, you got married, you take vacations, and you do great as far as I know on vacations. But I'm guessing that you're a different vacationer than Kaylee. I'm different than Renee. Some people like to soak, some people like to do. Where's the next historical site we're going to go see? I don't
Uh-huh.
know. I just want to go on
Mhm.
the beach and read while someone, serves me a Mai Tai or something like that.
Yes. How many
Have
plaques
at it.
did you read in the museum, or benches did you sit on waiting for the plaque readers to get through? Uh,
Right, right.
yeah, and I would just say, for me, it's like I need those regular rhythms in place because I don't know when inspiration is going to hit me.
One of the things I also recognize, for as much as we talk about the digital world and all the dangers and all the negativity out there, there are a lot of what I will call higher quality. And I'm not saying they're high quality, but they're higher quality, Substack blogs, they're higher quality YouTube channels with people who actually want to bring encouragement and good into the world. And when you can find them, like for me on Facebook and YouTube, Connor DeWolf is a guy, an influencer that speaks into the ADHD community. And he does it in such a hysterical way with all of our proclivities and idiosyncrasies. But he also does it in such a way that it's really affirming and very, very no, I was gonna say the word therapeutic, but it's restorative. And so, for me, that's one of the values is just trying to find places where your unique personality can really be found. And, if you can do that, it is just a great thing. Well, hey, want to say thanks for joining us today on our little podcast here with summer fun ahead of us. I'm Pastor Scott. John Carolus apparently just disappeared. Maybe he's going to Disney World. I don't know. In any case, we're going to end this, and thanks a lot for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon.